Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we are unpacking a really fascinating educational guide by Jason Plouff that outlines the revolutionary work of German trauma specialist Gopal Norbert Klein. Now, if you follow modern trauma discourse, you know the focus is almost always on the past, right? But Klein's approach, specifically his technique called the floating method, completely flips the script. It shifts our focus entirely away from digging up old stories and drops us directly into our present moment nervous system.
So let's just jump right in with a wildly counterintuitive question. Can we actually heal trauma without revisiting our past? I know, it challenges literally everything we usually assume about therapy. For decades, the standard narrative has been that, to heal, we just have to dig up every painful detail of our childhood. But what if we don't? What if the key to unlocking our nervous system doesn't actually require a time machine at all?
Klein makes a really bold claim about this. He argues that the deep suffering we carry from childhood, it isn't actually stuck in the past. It's actively playing out right in front of us, literally today. It shows up in how we unconsciously avoid, genuine, full communication with the people closest to us right now. The past is long gone, sure, but the trauma, it's manifesting in the here and now. To really grasp how we can overwrite these experiences, we've broken this explainer down into 5 key parts. 1, the hidden trauma epidemic. 2, the mind-body disconnect. 3, the power of projections. 4, the floating method. And 5, honest sharing in practice. All right, starting with section 1, the hidden trauma epidemic. We're going to uncover exactly why so many of us struggle with deep-rooted interpersonal conflicts, even when our current adult lives seem perfectly safe. You see, society, and honestly a lot of therapies, tend to focus heavily on isolated shock trauma. Things like a severe car accident, where body-focused treatments absolutely work wonders. But Klein points out what is essentially a hidden epidemic. Most people are actually suffering from developmental and attachment trauma. This doesn't come from one single event. It stems from constant, ongoing relational patterns during childhood that forced us to suppress our natural expression.
Just think about what that really means for a developing child who relies entirely on their caregivers for basic survival. Any emotion that isn't accepted by the parent gets totally shut down. That could be sadness, grief, hate, or anger, sure. But crazily enough, it could also be pure joy and aliveness. If a parent just couldn't handle a child's radiant joy, well, the child had to suppress it. And that creates this immense, trapped physical stress that we carry straight into adulthood.
Moving right into section 2, the mind-body disconnect. This is where we see a massive paradigm shift in how we actually go about treating all that deeply held physical stress. This is exactly where Klein challenges standard somatic therapies. A lot of body-based methods try to fix the physical stress directly within the body itself. But Klein argues that trauma is primarily stored as mental projections and distorted concepts. The mind's outdated ideas about relationships are the actual root cause here. If you don't address the mind's false belief that relationships are still inherently dangerous, it's just going to throw the body right back into dysregulation.
According to Klein's framework, if you manage to dissolve those distorted relational concepts in the mind, the body's dysregulation ends almost instantaneously. Seriously. Why? Because the danger signal is finally turned off at the source. The body is literally just reacting to the mind's alarm bells. So turn off the alarm and the body can finally rest.
Okay, section 3, the power of projections. We really need to unpack what these mental concepts and these loud alarm bells actually look like as we go about our daily lives. We call these alarms projections. A projection is basically an unconscious, completely outdated relational concept from childhood that gets overlaid onto a present-day interaction. It makes a false danger feel absolutely 100% real. It's kind of like running an old, glitchy software program on brand new hardware. A person might firmly believe, say, you want to attack me because you can't deal with my sadness. They believe it in their bones, not because it's true right now, but because that was their historical reality as a little kid. The mind projects that ancient danger onto a perfectly safe present-day partner.
And this creates such a profound tragedy. They recreate their suffering in every single moment, in every new contact. Since the original destructive environment is long gone, we're adults now, we choose who we hang out with. Individuals dealing with developmental trauma are unconsciously generating their very own suffering today. They're just projecting that old ghost-like danger onto new, safe people.
Which brings us to section 4, the floating method. Now that we've really wrapped our heads around how we project past dangers, let's explore Klein's totally unique therapeutic answer.
To break this exhausting cycle, Klein developed this group therapeutic method called floating. It usually happens in physical or online groups made up of at most 20 participants, and this group setting is highly intentional. I mean, think about it. Healing relational trauma obviously requires, well, relationships. It's all about direct interpersonal interaction.
The mechanics of floating are just brilliantly simple. First, a participant identifies their core suffering. Second, they literally select someone in the group who unconsciously triggers that projection. Maybe someone who just kind of reminds them of their dad or mom. Third, they engage in a specific communication technique called honest sharing. And finally, through that raw communication, they actively overwrite the old relational concept with present moment truth.
What's really fascinating about this process is the role of the therapist. Unlike traditional therapies, the therapist deliberately takes themselves right off the pedestal. Instead of making the whole thing about the client attaching to the professional, the therapist's only job is to help two everyday participants establish a real, genuine connection with each other. This is huge because it proves to the client's nervous system that safe, nourishing contact is actually possible with just normal, everyday people.
And that leads perfectly into our final segment, Section 5, Honest Sharing in Practice. Let's see exactly how this completely life-changing communication plays out. The absolute engine driving the floating method is a practice called honest sharing. Plouff's script really highlights that this is an incredibly powerful, accessible educational tool for everyone, requiring zero professional intervention to practice in daily life. It's all about expressing your immediate internal experiences, specifically your physical sensations and your emotions, within a secure, judgment-free space, without acting them out. By locking into present moment awareness, two dysregulated nervous systems can totally bypass their old defense mechanisms just by speaking the raw, present truth.
The core guidelines of honest sharing are straightforward, but man, are they profound. It is strictly about communicating what is actually there, right in this very second. It's stating objective facts about your internal state, like simply saying, my heart is beating really fast and I feel anger. That's it. You aren't blaming the other person, you aren't lashing out aggressively, and you aren't freezing up. You are actively recognizing the absence of present danger. Just observing and sharing your reality fosters incredible emotional regulation and way deeper connections.
But we do have to remember, for someone carrying developmental trauma, doing this isn't exactly a walk in the park at first. Because being vulnerable and expressing those historically suppressed emotions, like anger or deep sadness, was genuinely dangerous back in their childhood, doing it today can trigger intense fear or literally panic. The nervous system is screaming, don't say that, you're going to be rejected or hurt. So taking this step requires the facilitator to gently, calmly remind the participant that the danger is entirely in the past. They are completely safe right now.
And here is where the absolute magic happens. When both people manage to bypass those old survival mechanisms and tell each other the pure truth of their internal experience, the illusion shatters. That old structure, which remember, is just outdated ideas in the mind, dissolves because it gets forcefully overwritten by real information, by real, safe contact in the present moment. Klein notes that he has seen profound, totally life-changing transformations happen in as little as 20 minutes once this genuine connection is made. The ultimate takeaway from Klein's approach is just incredibly hopeful. You do not necessarily need years and years of painfully digging through childhood memories to heal. Your suffering is being maintained by an illusion of danger playing out today. Healing happens the exact moment you risk genuine connection and realize that the perceived dangers of intimacy simply aren't a reality anymore. So I'll leave you with this final, provocative thought. If the invisible walls keeping us isolated are literally just outdated software programs, what happens when you simply choose to speak the truth today? Klein notes there are three very specific aspects to these traps, which we might just have to cover in our next explainer. Until then, consider how your own mind might be creating illusions of danger in your life right now, and what might happen if you replace that illusion with honest sharing. Thanks so much for joining me.